Okay, I think we should probably make a start. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you ever so much for joining us this morning. We are delighted to be joined by two of the doctors from the University of Wolverhampton this morning. I'm going to hand you over immediately and let them introduce themselves. So, if you're ready, everyone, shall we make a start?
Yeah, good morning, Susan. Good morning and good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. So it's a great pleasure to present our research findings related to business resilience during the global pandemic, particularly focusing on COVID-19. The work what I'm presenting with my colleague Dr. Subhashini Suresh is based on our research teamwork. I would like to acknowledge their contribution and also want to uh, say big thanks to the organization who participated during the COVID-19 to share their experience, their difficulties with us. So who are we? Is it moving, Shubham? Oh, yeah, no, okay. Yeah, I'm Dr. Suresh Renkappa. I'm a coordinator for postgraduate research programs and also inclusivity lead at School of Architecture and Built Environment, University of Wolverhampton. My colleague, Dr. Subhashini Suresh, is a director for postgraduate research programs.
Yeah, I'll just chip in here. Yeah, my photo there has been ages ago, so you might see familiarity. But I would like to welcome all of you all to this work that we've done and what we're going to share in the next 45 to 50 minute slot about our journey into pandemic in terms of our research, reaching out organizations, how they overcame or how they were resilient in terms of this jitter or unforeseen circumstances that hit cities as well as everybody. So
Yeah.
in terms of COVID, it's not new to anybody anymore. As a world, we had this unprecedented crisis, and that has changed completely the way we work as an individual, the way organizations work, and even more the way how cities function. Over to you, Suresh.
Yeah, so as Shiva mentioned, we all experienced, directly or indirectly, the consequence of the COVID-19. It could be like for some people it was very simple changes, but for some people it is a big change, like work from home, closing down the business, or the government's asking, in the never in the history of the or times we've seen government asking to employees, their citizens to work from home. So this caused a lot of problems, directly or indirectly. Particularly, COVID-19 is the biggest health, social, and economic emergency we ever faced since the Second World War. Uh, I mean, as of yesterday, the over 680 million people, the affected, around 6.8 million people died. So that shows, the huge impact on the human side because of the pandemic. When something happens, the businesses need to adapt to that. So that we call as a change. Change, it could be different for different people, but it's always a constant. If businesses wants to sustain or survive, they need to adapt to that change, as Darwin mentioned, survival of the fittest. However, if you see the statistics, more than 70 to 80% of the organization, they fail to achieve their change or change programs. On top of that, like if you see the uncertainty caused due to COVID-19, because we never know how about the COVID-19, that built more pressure on businesses. The businesses, it could be profit making or not profit businesses or organizations. How do you make resilient businesses? So it's a challenge. So what is resilience mean? people nowadays are talking about agile organization, a resilient organization. Is there any difference between them? For me, resilience is the capacity of a system, the entire system. You could say take an industry as a system, or a country as a system, or an individual organization, or a sector, or a person. Its purpose and integrity in face of a dramatically changed circumstances. We never expected something happen. How do you cope with that and bounce back to its original position at most? So when you talk about like a transition theory from a business point of view, what happens before to the incident, during the incident, and after the incident? How best the business comes back to its original position, that's where resilience comes into picture. However, agility, agile organization, what we call recently, nowadays, is more about, adapting to the change. It's not about like a bouncing back to this position. So when you talk about resilient organization, as I mentioned earlier, they avoid bad outcomes like exit from the market or a segment. Probably we have seen that during COVID-19, many small and medium enterprises, they couldn't sustain over a period of time, like 2 years. So what they did, they closed down. One of the key reason could be like if you take Amazon delivery services, that caused a lot of impact on the small and medium enterprises and and also the small businesses in the society. And the resilient organization also it soften shocks, stockpiling up raw materials, like they manufacture the store somewhere and use that resources later. And also this is very important, resilient organization, they bounce forward, always they look forward thinking, the long-term leadership, a long-term vision. So typical characteristics of a resilience organization is it got autonomy. So it never depends on their leadership direction from top management, like a headquarters, I mean. So always they give autonomy to make decisions at the site level or the regional level or at a city level. So that makes more flexible and immediate actions they could take. The second most important characteristic of a resilience organization is need to be look from ecosystem thinking, the entire value chain of the business rather than thinking from a silos. So when you think from a silos point of view, like it's very difficult to achieve the end result and also cope with the change. So always it's better to look from ecosystem thinking. The third most important characteristic of a resilience organization is the transparency in decision making. So, how effectively you communicate, particularly from a top management to the lower, the supply chain as well as their employees, you need to be very clear and very, the vision oriented decision making. Say, for example, because of my business is not doing well, I'm going to sack like 20% of my employees. How do you communicate that in an effectively and ethically correct way? The fourth important characteristic of a resilient organization is culture for resilience, how effectively they cope with the change. What is the value? What is the purpose of the organization? How do they bring the balance in a traditional versus more innovative way? I look this aspect from more like how do you create a triple bottom value and also stakeholder value from a moral excellence perspective. The fifth most important characteristics of a resilience organization is their leadership. The leadership is very important during the tough times or when uncertainties are there. So the leadership need to look from both sides. They need to be visionary leader and also need to analyze like a scenario thinking. Okay, option one, what will be happen like this? So in scenario two, what will happen? Like how do you communicate that scenario and make the businesses run continuously? So these are the key characteristics of a resilience organizations. So As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to deliver 3 cases. So one from a city's perspective, how cities cope with the COVID-19 change or crisis. Then I will discuss an infrastructure sector adoption to the COVID-19. And finally, I'll discuss some of the small and medium enterprises, how they changed or adapt to the, the COVID-19 demands. So probably you all know about smart cities. So why smart cities? Using technology to solve the city's problem. Our technology acts like an enabler to move and deliver the governance of the cities. The primary goal of any smart city is to create an urban environment that yields the high quality of life to its citizens while also generating overall economic growth. So it's all about, how do you create economic value to the cities, social responsibility to the citizens, and environmental sustainability, like reducing carbon emission, reducing waste, and also, addressing pressing environmental issues. The smart city is a new concept. However, it's a big opportunity for UK PLCs to grab around 900 billion worth of business opportunity. So, like if you see some of the developing countries like India, they're, developing more than 100 smart cities. And also, some other countries like Brazil, Russia, and also South Africa, they're trying to create new smart cities. It's a big opportunities for UK PLCs to go and grab that opportunity. And also it's the 12th largest nation on earth in terms of GDP contribution to the smart cities. Why cities? So probably we know that more than 66% of the world population lives in the urban environment. So because of more people migrating to these cities, it creating a lot of challenges, particularly from infrastructure point of view. It could be a traffic congestion or health issues or energy shortage or increasing crime rates, particularly in the mega cities like London, New York, then, like Mumbai, Shanghai, again, it's another big challenge. If you take in a developing world, infrastructure is aging. However, in a developing world, there are no infrastructure. So how do you cope with that? So it's a big, huge challenge for the city decision makers like mayors and others. The housing shortage, we all know how the UK is experiencing the housing shortage. Again, this causes a big problem for city administrators. So what is the purpose of the smart cities? Like I'm taking India as a case example here. Indian government, they want to build, as I mentioned, more than 100 smart cities. So they want to create economic growth and also simultaneously want to address the quality of life of their citizens by reducing the negative impact on the environment by using technology, like harnessing the technology. It acts like an enabler to deliver services. It could be transport or water or energy or governance. So this gives just a snapshot of how India is doing. As I mentioned, 100 cities. So they're implementing more than 5,000 proposed projects. They're already started implementing. So nearly, billions of dollars, and they're investing towards the smart cities program. What smart city does? How? If you take as an example, like a smart street lighting, this one was implemented in Nagpur city in the midwestern part of India, near to Mumbai, like a Bombay. So what smart street lighting does, they use sensor-based adaptive street lighting for accident and crime-free roads, and also marketplaces and other critical establishment in the city of Nagpur. Why do they need to go for the smart lighting? Because there are more than 22 black spots near the busy intersects, that leads to many accidents. So it is creating like a bottleneck for transport movement in that city. what are the benefits they're they're reaping because of implementing smart street lighting? Say they reduce the energy savings, consumption, and also indirectly reduces carbon emission because the carbon is the shadow for energy. When you burn energy, that emits the carbon. Again, the carbon emission is the key contributor to the global climate change. So indirectly, it could address the climate change issues. So intelligent metering and billing. So through that, they could see the how much they're spending, how much they could save, different thing. And the operational cost reduction, as we know that the local authorities and municipalities, they're struggling to cope with the expenses because of lack of financial resources for the cities. So it will be very useful to see the cost reduction, particularly from energy. So how did the smart cities strategies they redeployed during COVID-19? Say, for example, like a smart waste management infrastructure they used to get rid disposing the medical waste by using the microcontroller based smart restrooms, monitoring system to monitor the public movement from point A to point B, and also they use technologies to detect and isolate the COVID-19 cases.
Can I just come in here, Suresh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the example given from Nagpur in terms of the smart street lighting to the applications that helped during pandemic, it's the infrastructure that was in place, like in terms of sensors and the technology in smart cities. They do have integrated command and control room where all the data goes into that, and it represents in a dashboard because you could do analytics from the various sources of data. So you're getting a big flow of big data from all directions where it has been set. So when the pandemic hit and they're looking for initiatives, this integrated command control center was the heart of how they could come about with initiatives in terms of how the cities can react. So where the infrastructure for smart cities was almost developing or was already there, those cities were able to cope up faster when compared to cities that were not under the initiatives of smart cities. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Shubha. I mean, as Shubha mentioned, they could redeploy or repurpose the smart city infrastructure to manage COVID-19. That was the advantage because technology can reuse for some other purpose. Whereas some cities they didn't implement the smart cities, they did struggle in India. To take some other examples, the Kanpur Smart City established an artificial intelligence tool for administrative purpose, to carry it out during the nationwide lockdown. So it basically they did, they identify using the image processing, so they could see who got the COVID-19, who doesn't, then they could separate and isolate them. Similarly, in Chennai, the Madras, they use the interactive robot Jaffy, which has been deployed at COVID-19 isolation wards. So what it used to do, it used to go and talk to the patient, and also it used to deliver water bottles and some other important key things. So if you take similarly, Nagpur Municipal Corporation, they use the coronavirus mobile application. Again, they use smart city infrastructure to develop these applications, and they which detects whether they are likely to have contacted COVID-19. Like if the person contacted 100 people, they can see and isolate them. To draw conclusions or implication of based on this case study. So, the very important thing is the leadership, like a crisis management leadership need to be established, and also need to be leadership require, the flexibility and agile decision making, but it also requires consistently and commitment to the greatest issues of our time. Then credible communications is very important. Also, like during pandemic, it's a complex event because we never know how about the pandemic or the issue. So that caused more problematic for decision making. So because we got less information, so you need to make some assumptive or based on the gut feeling, you need to take decisions. The third most important implication for cities is the need to be collaboration. Need to work with their locally, nationally, and also internationally. Say, for example, if somebody wants to buy PPE during the lockdown time, they did struggle, because they couldn't provide the proper supply to the region or to the country. So that's where they needed to develop international collaboration to import the PPE or some medical equipment, particularly in oxygen supply, and as well as vaccine medical supplies. These are the very important. They need to establish strong collaboration across the globe. And need to be a creative governance. You can't do business as usual. They need to think from a more innovative or more collaborative way. That's where the participatory governments by involving various stakeholders is important, particularly engaging with the research organization, universities, the industry and investors and social communities need to come together during the pandemic.
Can I chip in here, Suresh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sure.
So all of us have been through the pandemic. So you would have seen during that from March 2020 to almost 22 months and further, we had almost getting data on a regular basis in terms of how the spread was happening, in terms of how many were hospitalized, how many deaths were happening. So when we're talking about these factors like crisis management, leadership, credible communication, collaboration, creative governance, um, and also capturing knowledge, it all played a massive role because of the communication of those messages did affect a lot. And I do know so many people wouldn't even turn on their tellies or their internet on the COVID news because it was all those projections and it was kind of scary to know this is what is going to happen. So it's very important to have a credible communication, but also collaboration to see how these predictions in terms of deaths or in terms of PPE, in terms of the availability of oxygen cylinders are managed. And that is where it goes to the last point, capturing knowledge. So here we're looking Smart City as an organization and how the infrastructure that was in place for making the city smart. It could be smart waste management, smart health, smart education. Uh, in those things was repurposed to and reconnected to the COVID pandemic and how cities were made to function as much possible in a better way for the citizens and to come out of it as quickly as possible. When I say come out, we are still there in it, but because of the way things are happening, it seems to be, as Suresh was saying about transformation theory, we went into COVID, we were in it, and it has kind of, we are phasing out of it. So it's very important in terms of digital transformation and open innovation culture that would help an organization or a city to be resilient during crises such as COVID.
Yeah, thanks, Shubham. Some of the research outputs we produce based on smart cities and COVID-19, if you see managing COVID-19 related knowledge from a smart cities perspective. The second one is interesting and evaluation of critical knowledge areas for managing the COVID-19 pandemic. So we dealt working with the NHS in the UK. So we identify know-how, who knows what, where the critical knowledge is receding. So we call that as a knowledge map. So we created, and it helped some of the organizations to adopt and implement that change. So it was very useful from a knowledge management perspective. Okay. The second case I'm going to discuss is based on the infrastructure sector. We all know that the infrastructure is a backbone of any country's economic growth. The physical infrastructure at a peak in terms of creating a new infrastructure for the world, because when the recession or something happen, usually the governments invest in infrastructure development. It's a huge opportunity again, like based on McKinsey report, the entire world need to invest around $3.3 trillion per year up to 2030, at least to create the gap in the infrastructure, particularly in developing world or underdeveloped world. So therefore, infrastructure forms an essential part of our daily lives and is vital for creating economic prosperity. It could be like creating society's health and well-being. If you see that if you take economic infrastructure, or social infrastructure, or environmental infrastructure, that those are key things during the COVID-19 or any pandemic for that matter, because if you have a proper social infrastructure, then it's easy to treat them, like in the hospitals, the medical facility provision or treatment provision, all those things need to be there. So then it is easy to redeploy and provide a better quality of life for the citizens. And also the PwC report states that the infrastructure is a very complex structure because it is interconnected and interdependent, and also is a more global nature. So when you see that COVID-19 happens, the investment or the cost and schedule of the infrastructure projects went up because of lack of material availability, difficult to execute the work on site. So therefore, the infrastructure sector needed to relook and go for a different approach to run their businesses or to deliver the infrastructure projects. So, when the lockdown happens, how do you expect, the employee to go and work inside? Those are the challenges they faced. Based on our study, like more than 70% of the interviews noted that the biggest change in their strategy for their organization was remote working from home. And but the nature of the business or the sector is that you need to go and work on site to produce the product. It's not like work from home and deliver lectures like in education sector or finance sector. So it was a challenge for challenging for many business decision makers within the infrastructure. And also, like if you work remotely for a long time, again, it impacts them negatively on their mental health and well-being. So they needed to consider that issue as well. Some of the solutions, how the infrastructure sector implemented, say, for example, from a collaboration and communication perspective, like collaboration with their clients, contractor, designers, and supply chain. So what they did, they use the use of technologies and softwares, particularly building information modeling was very useful during the COVID-19 times. And also they went to use like a more meetings they hosted through Microsoft Teams and as well as Zoom. Communicating for work and staying at workplace location. Again, it was very difficult for the decision maker to go for these sort of strategies where the government is asking employee to work from home, whereas the supply chain and contractors, they need to go and execute the work. So they made a difficult decisions, like a challenged a lot of staff members finding it difficult to travel because there was no public transportation. They can't go for carpooling. Yeah, so this created a lot of problems. Then they found some solution for that. Then working as a part of a team on site. When they're working in a site, they need to obey the social distancing, whatever the government was asking them to follow. So they tried to follow, but the productivity went down. Again, so they needed to see the different type of approach. Again, the stakeholder engagement, there are like a primary stakeholder and secondary stakeholders. So some of the organizations, they pass the engagement with the public, community and other thing. However, the key stakeholders like the designers, the engineers, contractors, they did use some digital tools, keeping engaging and working in collaboration and communication purpose. Some of the implications based on our research for infrastructure is, that today's infrastructure organization can succeed only if there are genuinely value-led, if they see from the entire value chain of their business rather than look from a own perspective. In isolation, it won't work. Also, they need to look from holistic purpose. System thinking is very important. Whenever any crisis comes, they need to address in their value chain rather than within their own pocket. And also, during uncertain times, there are fears that a new recession will come and economy will collapse. Financially, measures need to be implemented. So that's where the cost cutting comes into picture. However, decision makers need to make a long and short-term planning by considering, how the crisis will negatively impact on the business, society, and the environment. These are some of our publication related to.
When we talk about, if I can chip in here, Suresh, when we talk about the infrastructure, we looked in greater depth on two aspects. One was the water sector, and the other was the transport infrastructure. So in the water sector, you would have, on reflection, when COVID was around, we were asked to wash our hands oftenly than what we would have normally done. And also it was less going to workplace and more staying in their own houses or their residence. So what did this lead to from the water sector, from the companies of the water utility sector, in terms of what they had this demand and supply crisis, as to the demand is now shifted towards the residential areas from the business areas. So how are they going to adapt to that change? So it was very interesting to see how these companies were able to be resilient and go through this pandemic. And equally so, how would they get their staff or employees get involved to be on site if there are repairs of water pipes or even sewage pipes? So these necessary things that need to be happen on an ongoing basis, and those delays would mean another piece of jigsaw to be solved. So it was very interesting from how we came up with our findings and conclusions when we were discussing with the water utility sector. And one of the things that stood out is the adoption of digitalization. There was a move towards employees to be trained and upskilled to use more digital aspects in the workplace. But what COVID did in terms of the pandemic is encouraged or acted as a catalyst for employees to upskill themselves to the needs of the hour as we speak. So those companies who already had policies like agile working and working from home aspect, they were better able to cope because they had some kind of infrastructure in place. So the lesson learned from this is about how organizations think about their future investment, as well as their employees to be in line with their value-led vision. Thanks.
Yeah, this is our second paper. This one was won the best paper of the year award from Emerald Publication, and also this one, this paper was used by many governments, to develop their strategies. Like we are very proud of achievement of this piece of work what we did. The third case, what I'm going to discuss now is how businesses need to change their models to adapt to the COVID-19 crisis. We all know that business models need to be relooked during the crisis. So we can't run business as usual. Need to be more innovative, more creative, and out of the box thinking. That's where radical change need to come. What is business model innovation helps? So it describes analyzing, managing, and communicating their business plan, how company sustainable value proposition to its customers and other stakeholders, and how it creates and delivers this value to their customers and different stakeholders. And also they need to capture economic value and also maintain the social, natural, and economic capital behind these organizational boundaries. So that's where the triple bottom line value creation comes into picture. Challenge particularly during COVID-19 was for small and medium enterprises. Because many jobs were at risk and they couldn't get the capital flow to run their business. And also they couldn't cope with that change, like work from home, because they didn't have the resources to invest in that. So they did struggle during the COVID-19 across the world. As you know, the more than 90% of the businesses across the world are small and medium enterprises. This is very true, particularly in developing countries. We use the European definition of small and medium enterprises, particularly on small enterprises between 10 to 49 employees. We took 3 cases. We interviewed them. We discussed with CEOs and different layer of the organization. The case 1 organization is from Southeast Asia. So it's a multinational organization. The line of business was global health and technology development. They used to develop a data science related thing. So how they redeployed and repurposed their business during the COVID-19. So they moved to adopting artificial intelligence technologies, the machine learning. So they used to the predicting and identifying infectious diseases as part of repurposing their business strategy. The case B organization is from Latin America. So again, it's a national level focused organization. So line of business was education. Basically, they provide counseling services to students for access to the higher education globally and career development. That's the line of business. Organization C is come again from Latin America. So it was a social crowdfunding. So basically they're collecting the resources to execute digital crowdfunding platform for social causes, particularly during COVID-19, the pandemic time, as well as natural disaster when happens, they want to support the social or vulnerable people in those areas. If you see the value proposition, the case A was a decision-making tool for public health officials to address the pandemic issues. So the main value creation or delivery system was combining technology and understanding of the disease to development of data science thing. The value capture mechanism was the subscription model. Somebody need to subscribe and use their service. So for a certain fee for that service. Whereas case B, they used the fees from service providers, value capture mechanism. So they engage different stakeholders and the needs and develop focused products and services. Particularly that supporting students during the lockdown time, providing the education facilities, supporting digital platform for the students. Case C was, as mentioned, crowdfunding platform. It gives community the opportunity to expose causes from people in need and also provide coverage for the causes through social media, the newsletter, digital media and other things. The main the value capture mechanism they used was more of a partnership with suppliers. So suppliers pay their fee for that purpose. So how did they engage three organizations? What drives them to change during the pandemic? Like one of the key demand for organization A comes from stakeholder and also because they had the internal capability and know-how to reallocate their business. They developed services to address COVID-19 pandemic, and they also implemented a new payment method for clients who required COVID-19 services. That they were never, because of COVID-19, they wanted to go for the contactless cards payment instead of collecting cash. So that they repurposed the existing infrastructure and they use. So the outcome of that change is continue to operate during lockdown due to the securing new contracts, and also they expanded their business. That's where so the challenges brings new opportunities. So the organization is succeeded, and also they started doing new service line for their business, and they're perishing well. They're performing really well now. Where organization B, the technological advancement, was a key driving force and also measure taken by health authorities. They ask them to work from home, how that has changed the impact on the education system. So they use that opportunity to convert into the business new revenue stream for that organization. Whereas organization sees the internal sustainability consciousness that led them to change their business model, mainly focus services to address COVID-19 associated issues from their clients. So they helped around 150 families and provided food to essential workers from over 20 healthcare centers within Latin America. So you can see like how the change their business models, the flexible business model helped them to survive and also create new opportunities for their businesses. So in conclusion, what we see in the three cases, all three sectors, in three cases demonstrated you need to have a strong leadership, you need to have a strong communication during the crisis, and also they need to use technology as an enabler to solve the problems, and digital transformation is very key. And also, the confidence without attitude is crucial for tomorrow's leaders if they want to adapt and change and thrive during the uncertain times and preventing further economic damage to their organizations. These are some of our publications related to this area. And thank you very much for the time. You have any questions?
Yeah, if you'll want our publications, just let Suzanne know. We are happy to share them.
Does anyone have any questions for Shubha or Suresh? You can either just mute yourself and speak, or you can pop something in the chat room if you prefer. Thank you guys for sharing your research with us. That's been a really interesting presentation. Thank you. I have Luke here asking for the PowerPoint presentation, if that's okay, guys. If you can let me have that, would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Good. Okay. He says it was a brilliant presentation, so thank you. a lady interested in reading your publications. So shall I pass on her email address to you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, okay, we'll sort that for you, Maria. Looks like there's no questions though. They're all just saying thank you.
Mhm.
So I think we will leave it there. So if I can just close by thanking you both very much again. It's been really interesting. And thank you all for attending. If anyone needs a copy of the presentation, of the recording, or of the publications, just quickly pop something in the chat or email me. Likewise, if you require a CPD certificate for this morning's event, same applies there. Our next session on this Thursday Club will be the 6th of April, I believe, and we'll have Nigel Barr back with us on that occasion, talking about essential NEC cases. So that should be a really interesting hour of your morning. So thank you all again. Thank you to our presenters. That was fantastic. And I hope to see you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I don't know who you are because you've not put your name in. Okay.